Welcome back to Internet Crime Report with Jane Hitchcock and myself, Joseph Dowdy. Jane, what are we talking about this week?
I want to talk about scam emails that people have probably seen in their inbox, and the only reason I wanted to bring it up is because I have one of my sisters and then a good friend got kind of frightened when they received this email claiming that it was coming from a hitman that had been hired by somebody to kill them, and this hitman was offering for a fee not to kill them. One of my friends was really freaked out about it and thought he does this. He's a psychic, and he does this online radio show, and he really thought somebody had hired somebody to kill him. And I had to reassure him and tell him not only was it not real, but it was basically a scam trying to get people to pay money. And I directed him to a great website called Snopes.com. That's SNOPES.com, and it's the best reference as far as to urban legends, scam emails, anything you think of. If you get anything in your email inbox that has like forward like 3 or 4 times, and make sure you send this to everybody that you know, that type of thing. It's really great. And then yesterday, Phoebe, the cybercrime dog, got an email supposedly from one of her friends, and this was one I had not seen personally until yesterday, and it basically said my sad news, and had her name in the subject line, and it said, I'm writing this with tears in my eyes. My family and I came down here to Madrid, Spain for a short vacation and got mugged at the park of the hotel we stayed at. All of our cash, credit card, and cell phones were stolen off of us at gunpoint, but luckily for us, we still have our passports. Basically what it did was asking to wire money to this friend in Spain, supposedly. And I recognized it right away because that is also found on Snopes. But unfortunately, and I've seen this in the media, people have actually been wiring the money to their supposed friend, and a lot of times it's relatives. You see grandparents suddenly getting an email from their grandson or granddaughter, and they freak out, and they don't think to call the parent or actually try and contact the grandson or granddaughter and see if they really are traveling, if they really are in trouble. And it's just one of those things, and people have actually paid the hitman, the supposed hitman. But it's just one of those things where you have to be so careful about when you get things like this in your email inbox. Instead of responding to it, go to Snopes, check it out, or if you don't know, how to do that, you can come to our website, email us, and ask us. And, it's the same thing like the Nigerian scams, where they've got a lot of money, and they'll give you a percentage of it if you put it into a bank account here in the USA, but you have to pay upfront fees to get it going. It's usually millions of dollars. People fall for that too. And on a kind of a funny note is there was one guy who actually responded pretending to be different people each time he responded to one of these Nigerian scammers. One time he was like a blonde hot model, and another time he was a senior citizen, another time a businessman, and he began doing these exchanges with the Nigerian scammer to the point where they were convinced that the blonde or whoever it was going to actually fly to Nigeria, and this guy would write and say, well, I want to make sure you know how to spell my last name correctly when you pick me up at the airport. Can you write on a cardboard sign my name, take a picture of yourself, and let me see it and make sure? And it just is hilarious. Like one of them was Father, don't you touch me, and another one was Bukake, and another one was like swear words. And they were actually taking pictures of themselves and sending them to this guy, not knowing that he was a guy. And he has this website called EbolaMonkeyman.com, and if you've got an hour or two, you start reading these. It really is funny how they get taken in by the supposed victim. And then when at the end, whenever he reveals himself and says, I'm really not, I know who you are, I know you're a scammer, and I'm really not the person you thought I was, they get mad at him. And it's just really funny. So, on the one side, you get people who actually pay money, and on the flip side, you have this guy who really did something, but I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that at all.
Right. I mean, the guy obviously, he is aware of the risks. He's probably,
yes,
researched this kind of thing. I know that the FBI has a lot of resources for people who might encounter Nigerian scams, and they're a good resource, and so you can actually report them to the FBI so that they can be investigated. I used to work for a company where the guy who was the head of the nonprofit received one of these Nigerian scams, and he believed it was real, and he traveled internationally a lot, and he thought that there was going to be a big trust fund that was going to help his nonprofit, and so he was very excited about it, and actually flew to wherever it was in Africa where he was told to go, and he was lucky he didn't get kidnapped, because that is what often happens, because they figure these guys are, real crooks. They're not they're not just some kids playing games, on the internet. These are real crooks. They're very organized, and so a lot of times what they do is they figure that whoever it is that has arrived is somebody that can be held for ransom. And that's kind of, their ultimate goal, if they can get somebody to send money up front without them having to, do anything further. But they'll have you come to them and hold you for ransom if you're not really careful. So this guy really lucked out with his life, I think. And it's a very common scam. You'll see it a lot on the internet for sure. So anything else about that?
I would say, the only thing is, remember that when you get these things, they are spam unless you actually pay the money, and then it's a scam. So just toss it in your trash, or, report it. And there's another website called spamcop.net, and they take you through the steps on how to report the spam. If you're really upset about getting things like this, you can report it for free. And that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, well, very nice. The next thing that we wanted to talk about was this past week, July 9th, which was a little more than a week ago, was another sort of doomsday virus that was out there called DNS Changer. And DNS Changer was designed to basically hijack people's DNS settings so that when they would try to go to the internet, they would be redirected to a virus-infected DNS server instead of their normal server. Your normal server that you use for DNS, and DNS is basically a way for your computer to translate a name like, Microsoft.com or Apple.com into a physical not a physical address, a numerical address, which is likened to a physical address. But you'll type in your name of where you're going to, and the computer will translate that into a numerical address, like a phone number. And so that's DNS. And so if this virus had infected your computer, when you try to access anything on the internet, it will go through an infected server. And so the FBI had stepped in, and they actually took down the servers that this DNS Changer virus was pointing to. And so they also offered a tool to allow you to see whether or not your computer was infected. So this is the first time that I've seen the FBI get so actively involved in a virus. And so they did a really good job. They were able to go in and take down, the potential threat that people had. And so it got a lot of news because of the FBI's involvement, and there were a lot of people that were really worried about July 9th. And the good news is that basically when July 9th came and went, nothing happened. And so like many other doomsday sort of, scenarios, like the whole 2012 thing, so it ended very well. And so I wanted to give people a resource, actually two resources. One resource, which is a free one, and they're both free, by the way, is opendns.com. Rather than using the DNS server, which you currently access through whatever internet source you have. So if your internet provider is, Comcast.com, then you get to use their particular DNS server. And if you want to, you can use OpenDNS, which provides DNS services for a lot of really big companies. And they are constantly checking it to make sure that no DNS settings go to infected websites. They make sure that they don't go to specific types of sites. When I worked at a school one time where I was teaching computers, and we had a problem with a couple guys that were always on the mixed martial arts websites while they were in class. And so I was able to, specifically block those websites for people who were using the computers in the school. So it's a very useful tool, especially for work environments or school environments for people, and it's great for home use too. So that's opendns.com. And the other one is, of course, you want to have your computer protected from viruses and all sorts of malware, because there are a lot of different types. One really great resource is techsupportalert.com. You can go and learn about the different types of viruses and malware that are out there. Malware just means bad software, like spyware and, keystroke loggers and all that sort of stuff. There's a whole, you could really do hours and hours of talk just on, viruses and malware alone. And they will provide they seem to be very unbiased reviews of free software solutions out there to protect your computer. So I recommend them highly.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, if there's nothing else for us to chat about this week, we'll meet again next week and talk about what's out there on the internet as far as internet crime goes. So Jane, if nothing else, then we'll see you again next week. Yes?
Sounds good.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
See ya.
We'll see you next week on Internet Crime Report.